Noah was born as the 13th son in the royal family, one of the 13 imperial princes born from the loins of the king. He opened his eyes to find a kindly woman looking down at him and wondered whether this person was his mother or just some maid. Before he could figure that out, the face of an old bearded man who turned out to be his father, the king, came near to inspect him from top to bottom. The king mentioned that Noah seemed to have taken after his mother, and his mother immediately shied away, claiming that his eyes and eyebrows looked just like that of the king. Noah noticed that he could see his own stats, but nothing made sense to him yet. Suddenly, one of the court mages walked up and held him delicately before announcing to the king that Noah had the magical affinity of water. The king laughed merrily, claiming that when Noah came of age, he would be given the lands of the southern kingdoms where most water mage clans lived, so he could rule over them justly. With that, the king asked the court mage to look at Noah's stats, but the moment they were revealed, the entire court went silent, while even the king had trouble believing his own eyes. One person screamed that it was a miracle, while others joined the chant, which confused Noah. He checked his own stats, only to realize he had the stats of an SS-ranked water mage, unheard of, let alone attained at birth. 6 years passed after that day, and Noah grew up to be a healthy young lad. He slowly learned about the kingdom of Mears, which his father ruled, where things had been calm for several decades and people lived peacefully without any war. The king was well loved by the general public, as were his sons, who were adored by the locals and the noble families. But Noah was not really interested in the political intrigue of the kingdom, as he had realized something about himself in the past 6 years. It turned out he had a special gift no one else was aware of. He could leech off the XP of his subordinates, which meant the more maids he had, the stronger he could become. This also meant that unlike others who had a cap on their levels, Noah could rank up indefinitely and become the strongest mage on the planet. His maids seemed completely loyal to him, as they discussed how, even at 6, Noah behaved more like an adult than a young kid. He soon went to the dining room for breakfast and thought about how his abilities and skills were limited at this point because of his young age, but if he kept training, he should continue to grow rapidly and outshine his older brothers. His thoughts were broken by a beautiful maid named Evelyn, who told him that the crown prince and the 4th prince had come to visit. Noah decided to quickly wrap up his breakfast, as even though they were his brothers, he shouldn't make the crown prince wait. He soon entered the guest room and went to one knee as he welcomed his older brothers, Crown Prince Albert and 4th Prince Henry. Albert looked at Noah with cold eyes, asking where he was, while Henry greeted him more warmly, claiming Noah seemed to be growing into a courteous young man. Albert claimed Noah would make a fine chancellor one day and told him he had a present. He clapped his hands, and immediately a terrified servant entered carrying a small coffin that emanated a deadly aura. Noah was confused by such a weird present, but Albert ordered the servant to open the coffin, which he reluctantly did. The moment it opened, an aura of dead and dying men erupted into the room, which Noah could clearly feel as he stared at the sword inside, wondering what he had just felt. Before he could regain his composure, Albert told him to pick it up. Noah realized he didn't want to handle the blade, but considering it was a gift from the crown prince, he couldn't refuse, and was forced to pick it up. He grabbed the sword gently, though it was too big for his tiny body. Albert smiled and told Noah he knew he could do it, finally explaining that the blade was a special sword designed for water mages, known as Leviathan. He also revealed that before him, more than 120 people had tried holding it, but none survived to tell the tale. This scared Noah, and he almost dropped the shiny blade, but Henry told him not to worry, as the curse was so strong he would have died the moment he touched it if the sword refused to accept him. With that, Albert and Henry both got up to leave while Noah bowed down, thinking to himself how this despicable crown prince, unfortunately his own older brother, was testing him with such a dangerous task for absolutely no reason. But he knew that saying it out loud would mean his head on a spike. Later that evening, while Noah was getting ready for bed, he noticed one of his maids seemed very tense, so he asked her if she was okay. Zoe the maid at first hesitated, but when Noah pushed for the truth, she immediately went to one knee, claiming she wanted time off as there had been a flood in her village and everything was swept away. Her family was starving, and she planned to sell her body in the red light district, hoping to collect enough money to help them. Noah told her to stop talking, claiming Zoe was his personal maid and he couldn't let her go for so long. He told her to bring her mother to the estate, and he would give her the job of rear gate closer and pay her $5,000 a month. Zoe was confused, claiming she had never heard of such a position and that the salary seemed incredibly high. Noah told her not to worry and also told her there was an empty house in the western outskirts of the capital, which she could occupy with her mother. Zoe couldn't believe her ears and started tearing up when Dylan the house butler came out and asked Noah if he wanted anything. Noah asked him if he was aware of the flooding in Zoe's hometown and told him to buy as much land as possible in that area. Dylan was confused since that would be a bad investment, but Noah told him they needed to protect the people in need there, as if they didn't intervene, a bunch of villains would occupy that land and start squatting. Dylan was shocked, and Noah asked what was wrong, but Dylan replied he was just surprised at how well Noah was managing the situation with the foresight oversight of an experienced man, considering he had never experienced anything like this before. Noah thought about how he had seen more than his fair share of destruction in his previous life, but he obviously could not reveal that to anyone. Dylan replied that according to his estimation, the entire land should cost roughly $70 million, which shocked Zoe. Even Noah knew it was a huge amount. His entire group of retainers earned roughly $80,000 a year, and he himself had some $50 million in funds from taxes and gifts from his brothers, but that still left $20 million. He turned and asked Dylan about the land they had in the south of the capital, and claimed they would have to sell that. Dylan was shocked and advised Noah against it since that land was a gift from his father, the king himself, and selling it would be unimaginably rude to his own imperial family. Noah told him not to worry as he would deal with his father later, and told them that nobles had the duty to sacrifice themselves to bring peace and happiness amongst their subjects. More than that, he also knew a noble who played the martyr was loved by the public, which might come in handy sooner or later. Dylan bowed down and told him he would deal with everything before leaving to make preparations. The next morning, Noah got ready with his army of maids to prepare for an inspection of the flooded area when he was called out by the fourth Prince Henry. He immediately ran up with a warm greeting, apologizing for not coming earlier. But Henry told him not to worry and asked where exactly Noah was planning to go. Noah replied there was a region named Dasa that had been completely flooded, and he aimed to buy some land there and inspect the area to assess damage. Henry noticed the sword given to him by Albert and asked if he was planning to use it during his visit. Noah replied he was carrying it just in case, but he wasn't sure yet since he hadn't felt any different about it since his first encounter. Henry took Noah away from prying eyes and told him he was a little worried about that sword and Albert's sudden generosity. So he did some research and found out the sword seemed to have a mind of its own and could only be controlled by someone it acknowledged as its true master. Noah remembered the vision he had about all the previous people who tried mastering it and realized this sword was basically like a mad dog, and he would have to earn its ownership before truly mastering it. Henry told him to be careful and advised against using it unless absolutely necessary, as he had a bad feeling the sword would take his life just as it had taken hundreds before him. With that warning, Noah left for Dasa and was surprised to see the level of destruction caused by the floods. He told Dylan to find the government office nearby and figure out the deeds of the lands, and then he moved into the village alongside Zoe to get a better idea of what was happening. He noticed men in crudely made shelters rounding up to get government relief food, which made him a little happy, but that disappeared completely when he took a bite of the terrible porridge being served. He couldn't believe how the government could have such low standards and was going to ask for the local official when, luckily, the local official named Lord Garl entered the area for an inspection. Noah expected him to take action against the terrible quality of food, but to his surprise, the man blocked his nose, looked at the porridge, and claimed it was sufficient, which made the cooks, who were taking advantage of the situation, happy. The chief cook told him his food was ready at the mansion, and Garl immediately decided to leave for the feast awaiting him. Noah couldn't stand this and immediately went to confront the man. He called Garl a corrupt little bastard with a tiny pee-pee, which hit him where it hurt the most, and the man with the fragile ego immediately pulled a sword on Noah. Noah called for the sword Leviathan, hoping it would kill him, and the sword immediately flew towards him. At first, he thought the sword would just obey him, but he suddenly realized its true strength as it started resisting him, burning him with its powerful, sinister aura. Noah, however, refused to back off and continued on, finally managing to overcome the sword and take control of the legendary blade once and for all. Once that was done, Garl had no chance as Noah easily parried his attack and decided the sentence for cheating the locals during a disaster was nothing other than death. With one swift slash, Noah cleaved the head clean off, shocking everyone. Immediately, the guards started surrounding them, and he would have gotten lynched, but he smashed the sword into the ground, creating an incredibly deep hole in the earth, shocking everyone. The chaos attracted the attention of a knight named Rowan, recently appointed as the manager of the area, who immediately recognized Noah and went to his knee. Everyone was surprised, but soon followed suit, taking a knee in front of him, while Noah told Rowan the first thing he needed to do was make sure everyone got good food. Rowan immediately apologized for his oversight and got on the task. After he returned, Noah was immediately called to the capital by his father, where he expected to get scolded, but to his surprise, his father praised him for taking the decisions when he took them and checked his stats again, which had grown since the last time. He thanked Noah for his help and told him he would need him to continue aiding and ruling the kingdom. A couple of days passed, but Noah stayed in the capital, the beating heart of the entire kingdom and the most prosperous place by far, where loads of talented people came to find work. His plan was to bag one of these talented people for himself so he could increase his own stats and quickly become a force to be reckoned with. His first candidate was a young girl he had heard about, supposed to be an incredible singer recently talked about as a brilliant up-and-comer. He found out the theater she was going to perform at and took a seat alongside Zoe to see if she was worth the talk. Soon, a young girl with a top hat named Ollie emerged on stage and got ready to perform. She started singing, and immediately Noah was mesmerized by her voice. He knew she was not the best technical singer he had ever heard, but she definitely seemed to really love her craft a lot. He thought with the right training and guidance, she could achieve greatness and started considering taking her under his wing. Before the performance could even end though, a bunch of goons broke into the theater and shouted at Ollie to shut her dumb ass up. The entire audience held their breath, wondering what these villains wanted, while Ollie stood there scared as the goons made their way towards the stage. One worker tried to intervene, but a fatty immediately pushed him aside before jumping on the stage. He screamed at her to pay up, claiming singing on these stages wouldn't get her enough money to pay her father's debts. She shivered as she told him to please let her go as she was trying to earn money and would pay soon. But the fatty told her this was a garbage way of making money, and if she wanted to earn loads quickly and easily, she needed to start a social media channel and upload thirst traps or selfie pics, and maybe her bathwater. She told him she was a respected girl and would never stoop to do things like that. But the fatty threatened to break both her legs if she didn't do as he said. That's when Noah decided to intervene and told Fatty to step away from the girl immediately. The fatty turned around and told Noah to go back to his mom's lap and drink some milk or he would beat the crap out of him. Noah didn't care though. He jumped down from the seat and started walking towards the stage, telling Fatty it was illegal to make children assume their parents' debt by the decree of imperial law, and it was also illegal to force people to sell their bodies to pay any debts. The fatty angrily grabbed him by the collar and lifted him in the air, claiming today was Noah's last day on Earth, but he didn't really know who he was talking to. With a flick of his fingers, Noah created a menacing purple aura that knocked all three goons to the ground. While Noah took out his sword and pointed it at the fatty, the goons realized they might be outmatched and immediately tucked their tails between their legs and ran away. Zoe went towards the injured worker and helped him up, while Noah told him to send them to him if they ever came back to harass anyone. Zoe handed him a business card, and the worker was shocked to see the boy was actually a prince. Noah didn't really care about the fanfare though, and turned towards Ollie and asked what her monthly expenses were. She thought about it, considering she also had to deal with her mother's treatment, and replied her monthly expenses should be around $600. Noah told her he would pay her $2,500 every month so she could work on her singing and get better. She was shocked and couldn't believe her ears, while Noah told her her salary would also increase as she got better. With that, he told her to complete the song as he would love to hear how it ended and return to his seat. Later that evening, when he returned home, he was greeted by his maids when he suddenly noticed the goons from the afternoon bowing their heads to the ground, begging an audience so they could apologize. He knew only now did they realize he was the prince, but he decided not to entertain them and told his maid to turn them away, claiming a prince did not have time to meet with people randomly. Just then, his older brother Henry arrived, claiming he had made the right decision as he would devalue his own authority as a prince if he talked to these plebs anytime they wanted. Noah told him that was not the only reason he decided to turn them away, and explained he wanted them to think he was still really angry about the stunt they pulled with the girl, which might scare them enough not to bother her again. Henry asked who this girl was and why he seemed so invested in her. Noah claimed she was a really good singer and he thought she could be an asset for the kingdom if she kept improving. Henry smiled, claiming Noah was very young but still thought about complexities like an adult, mentioning that Gary was close to his age but acted like a total child and was nowhere as smart as him. Noah politely replied Gary would also start understanding the situation soon enough, knowing that even though he called them his brothers, Henry and Gary were true blood-related brothers, since they were from the same mother while he had a different one. Henry then turned the conversation towards his sword, claiming he didn't really think it possible, but Noah seriously seemed to have mastered it. He asked where exactly the sword was and how he even carried it, as it was supposed to be too big for him anyway. Noah got up and showed how he did it, quickly using his magic to summon the sword right in front of his brother. Henry was shocked, as this was the first time he saw someone pull things out of their ass, and asked how far in he put it and whether it hurt. Noah told him it was nothing like that, and he simply shrank the sword to a small size and hid it inside his own sleeve. Henry was left speechless and sat back down with a thud, claiming with a sigh that Noah simply amazed him, since that sword was thought to be cursed and put away with all the other national treasures for over 2 centuries, and no one in written history was known to have conquered that blade. Later that night, Noah decided to go to a celebration he was invited to and spotted the goons still on the ground. The fatty got enraged again since he kept getting ignored and screamed that he could kill him anywhere he wanted, so he shouldn't try to act all high and mighty. In retaliation, Noah simply unleashed a tiny amount of energy from his sword, which immediately brought the fatty down to his knees again. Noah then got into the carriage and soon arrived at his destination, where an old man named Ray welcomed him inside. The ballroom immediately started buzzing with excitement as the news of the 13th prince in the ballroom started stirring. Ray asked Noah about the sword he was carrying, and he replied it was the legendary sword thought to be cursed, gifted to him by Crown Prince Albert. This immediately impressed everyone as they started talking about how getting a personal gift from the Crown Prince was a very big deal. One man there with a fragile ego immediately spouted nonsense about how the sword must be a replica toy, not realizing he was speaking so loudly everyone could hear. The chatter died down completely as everyone looked at Noah, while the guy started pissing his pants wondering what would happen. Noah didn't even lift a finger, but suddenly, a deathly aura erupted from his sword and covered the entire room, putting them in a trance. Noah immediately told the sword to stop, and the aura went away. Ray was surprised by the powers, claiming everyone felt a little closer to death. A little while later, he sat down on a small throne while everyone walked up to pay homage and gain his favor. All felt boring to him. But then finally, a blonde man named Alan walked up and introduced himself and his adopted daughter Cindy. The girl seemed alert by Noah's presence, but Noah decided to ignore that and asked how he came to adopt her. Alan explained he originally bought her from a slave market, but she showed a lot of will and resolve and was a really quick learner while being socially intelligent. Since he didn't have kids of his own, he decided to adopt her as his daughter. Noah smiled, claiming he loved stories like this, and invited the duo back to his mansion to chat more. Alan seemed really pleased only he was acknowledged amongst them all. But Noah told Ray the main reason he acknowledged them was because Cindy was somehow aware of his power. He demonstrated by releasing a little energy from his sword, but Cindy immediately recognized that and turned around to make sure they were not going to get attacked. A couple of days passed since that incident when one day, while Noah was out on a stroll, he met with the 8th Prince Oscar, who decided to take a walk with him through the market to find interesting stuff. While looking through a bunch of crap, Noah noticed a grimoire, and once he picked it up, it suddenly changed one of his stats to S ranked. He immediately got interested and bought it, but noticed his sword seemed to be reacting to it. Oscar seemed to recognize the book as a magical tome made by some sorcerer long ago, but the book suddenly opened and released a huge monster out in the open. Oscar told Noah to back off and go to safety, but Noah simply took out his sword and squared up to the demon. He tried to slice through the magical being, but failed for the first time. That's when he decided to use a bit of extra magic with his next slice and aimed it upwards so he didn't destroy anything else. With that, the magical creature ceased to exist, while Oscar stood there wondering how strong his little brother was. Watching this amazing feat, one shopkeeper ran out and bowed to the ground, requesting Noah to look at an item he had in his shop which might be a treasure. He took the princes back and showed them a magical ring, claiming it had yet to accept anyone as the owner, and asked Noah to try it. Noah put the ring on his thumb, and immediately the magic activated, and his entire body got covered with a beautiful plate of armor. The shopkeeper was shocked, but Noah really liked it and bought it instantly. But Oscar refused to let him pay, claiming it would be a gift from his side. With that out of the way, he decided to head back to the theater to watch Ollie sing. But the moment he got out of the carriage, Fatty attacked him with a sword. Noah immediately used a shield from his ring to block the attack, while the carriage driver subdued Fatty and captured him. Noah didn't really care and entered the auditorium to watch Ollie on stage dealing with 2 drunk men fighting over her. Noah intervened and used his magic to destroy their clothes, after which they ran away. He then called the owner in and told him he was disappointed with the security, or lack thereof, and offered to buy the entire place. The owner was hesitant, but Zoe immediately produced $100,000 out of her ass, which gave the owner all the motivation he needed, and he immediately sold it. Zoe thanked the prince, claiming she could never repay the debt she owed him, but he told her to focus on singing as he wanted her to sing in front of the king one day. With that, he sat back down as Ollie began one of her songs specially for him. But that's where this part ends.